Welcome back to the Home Stretch podcast. Again, we've got another episode about houses. I feel like I'm getting in the house groove again. I feel because I'm doing a kind of 30-part series on TikTok all about the house buying process. In my mind, it's now reactivating more things and memories that I remember from my journey. So, like, because I'm sharing that, now when I'm doing the podcast, I'm a bit like, oh, I kind of forgot about this. So I want to talk about that. So today's episode is going to be a little bit about when you are like kind of after you move into your house, basically, and what things to expect and like basically how to enjoy your house and not feel like it's not yours and not feel like you're living in someone else's house, basically, because that kind of feeling is very normal. I think when anyone ever moves into their first home, it never really feels like home for quite a while. So, yeah, I'm just here to say that that is totally normal and a lot of first time buyers go through it. So, yeah, today's episode is a little bit about house stuff again. I really hope you're not getting bored of me talking about house stuff all the time. Do you know what? I feel like this podcast started off very house related like topics because obviously I was talking about it a lot on my TikTok, and I just had a lot of information to share, and I feel like a longer form style of content might be better for some people to get information on about the house buying process, because sometimes a 10-minute video on TikTok just doesn't do it, and there's so much more to explain and so much more to talk about. So I feel like having this podcast was just a way of me explaining things in more detail. And I think I got to like maybe episode 15 or something, or maybe even after that, maybe episode 20, where I kind of thought I've had enough of talking about house stuff for the past like 4 or 5 months. I needed a bit of a break. And then I started talking a bit more about my own life and my own journey and things that I've done in terms of like pretty toxic relationships, my career changes, my life being in my 30s, just a lot of extra little things that hopefully some people can relate to. But for me, I needed that switch to keep me a little bit like on the right track, because it wasn't like I wasn't enjoying it as much, but I was just getting bored of hearing my own voice talking about house stuff, to be honest. So I was talking about it on my TikTok, talking about it on here. I needed like a release of something else. And I tell you what, the passion that came back even stronger when I was just talking about my life was actually quite refreshing, to be honest. So I'm really sorry if you're bored of me talking about house stuff, but I am going to talk a little bit about it again today, just because I feel like it's kind of fresh in my mind still. And I feel like first time buyers might find it quite useful, especially coming from someone that's been through the process, and came out the other end with the keys, luckily. So yeah, if you hear me being a little bit bunged up, I've been quite ill this week. On Wednesday, I was knocked out. One of those illnesses where you're in bed all day. I think I set my alarm for 5 a.m. I snoozed it till about 11 o'clock. And I'm not even joking. Nathan came upstairs and he was like, are you all right? And I was like, I don't think I am. I'm not well at all. And I slept, I think, for like 12 hours that day. So not even the evening. Like, I remember putting on Netflix when I came downstairs to the living room at like half 11 in the morning, put on Netflix, and I was just dozing in and out of sleep. I must have slept for so long and hardly ate. I just felt so bad. And yeah, I hate it when you feel ill like that, because you literally can't do anything. And I did catch it, and so did everyone else, and so did my sister. And she's really ill with it right now, bless her, because for me, I had one day of feeling really, really bad, like in bed, couldn't move. It kind of like flu, because I had muscle aches and stuff too. It was not nice. And then after that, I felt absolutely fine. Like the next morning, I was up at 5 a.m. and I was working all day. And then saying that, the day after, I think I had a bit of more of a lay in, because I still didn't feel 100%. So in terms of like how I feel, I actually feel okay in terms of like my body and myself, but it's just my chest is quite congested still and my nose sounds quite congested, but I actually feel fine. So that's the weird thing. But yeah, I'm coughing up so much disgusting stuff at the moment. I'm not going to go into too much detail because someone might be having their dinner, but it's just not nice. So yeah, if anyone else has been suffering from this absolutely horrendous flu, cold, like whatever the past week, can you let me know that I'm not alone? Because I think something's going around. My sister seems to think it might be COVID, but she's got asthma and it's really affecting her respiratory system. So it could be COVID, to be honest, but it's definitely affecting her more than it is me. So yeah, I hope she feels better soon, because it's horrible knowing that she's going through that. And I actually had a little cry this morning. Sorry if you're listening to this, Nicole, and it's not your fault, but I feel like, oh my God, I've never done this before. Do you know what it is? I feel like because it's your sister, even any one of your family members, to be honest, you don't want them to go through any pain or anything. I need to take a second. Wow. Um, yeah, it's just horrible just hearing that she's not well. Yeah, just knowing that I can't do anything about it and like I'm the big sister, you know? Oh, I've been so emotional today. Yeah, while I was trying to do my makeup this morning, I was just getting really upset because I don't know, I feel like I can feel people's pain. Even from a distance, I'm quite empathic like that. And when it's my sister, it just breaks my heart to know she's going through something that is just not nice. I think I need a sip of coffee and then that might help. I haven't actually cried like this in so long. Anyways, moving swiftly on to house stuff. Enough about being ill, even though I do sound ill, so I'm really sorry about that. But I do generally feel fine. It's just that I'm a bit blocked up because I've just been crying as well. So that's not helped. But talking about home stuff now, we obviously moved into our house like nearly a year ago, which is crazy. And I just wanted to go through a few things that we realised and a few things that we kind of experienced that you might go through as well that are completely normal. For example, when you collect your keys on completion day, you literally are in such a high state of emotion because you're so excited that you're moving into the house, but then a kind of feeling sets in where it's like, oh my God, we've actually got a mortgage now. And there is a thing called buyer's remorse. And if you've never heard of that, it's basically where you go through the process of buying your house, you buy your first home, you move in, and then you kind of have a little bit of like remorse in terms of whether it's the right decision. It's kind of like emotional fatigue where you overthink a lot in terms of, was this the right decision? Have we made the right decision? Because you're kind of locked in now for a long time. So it can feel quite overwhelming. And especially if you've gone through the whole process with a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety, it can just feel overwhelming and you don't really know how to handle your emotions. And that is very normal. I think I went through that a few times where you do have the thoughts of, oh my God, is this the right thing that we've done? And you kind of feel like you just made the wrong decision, even though you knew that you wanted the house. But then you do also get feelings of like alleviation and that you're so glad that it's over and you know that this was the house for you. So it is a bit of a roller coaster. And the stress of buying a house, like the actual process for me was like the hardest part. And then after you move in, for me, it actually wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Like I did hear a lot of stories about how people, like get kind of depressed and just really sad and don't feel excited about their home. Whereas me, we absolutely loved it and we loved decorating it and we loved making it ours. So there was a lot like to do with us and how we were dealing with the house. And I think we dealt with it in like a nice way. So just to caveat that if you do feel like you made a wrong decision or if you're just generally feeling remorseful about buying your house, which is normal, don't push off the feelings that they're not normal because they totally are. And for me, the best advice that I can give is just to sit with those feelings because it will come and go in waves. It will come and go because I did feel like that every now and again. And, you do have this kind of financial responsibility now. So I think that plays a big part in it. And it's sort of like, it's all fun and games leading up to completion day. But then when you actually get the keys and move in, then it's serious now. Like you have signed up for a mortgage for a long time and you're going to have to kind of deal with that with you and your partner for a very long time now. And another thing that I will say is you will move into your house and it probably won't feel like your home for a long time. For example, me and Nathan didn't feel like it was our home for a good couple months. And I remember just being sat in the kitchen one morning. I just thought, I feel like I'm in someone else's house. It was really weird. You got to think that it still looks like the seller's house right now. So realistically, it's not going to feel like yours. I mean, if you move into a new build and everything's quite modern and fresh and new, it's probably going to feel a lot different compared to like an older house that you need to do up. So with ours, we're kind of in the middle. It was ready to be moved in and we didn't have to do things straight away, but there is upgrades that we need to do. So for example, in the kitchen, we've got a light in there that's like a long strip, like one light in the kitchen. It's really powerful and really strong, but it reminds me of my nan's house, like back when I was a kid, where you just have like a one long panel light in the kitchen. So obviously that needs to change. So there is things that we would need to do in the house. And also there's, what is it called? Artex in the ceiling, where it's like swizzles. And we don't even know yet if it's got asbestos in it. But the house was built in 1989, I believe. So doing loads of research, we found that there's probably a low chance that it has got asbestos in it. So we do need to get all the ceilings skimmed at some point. So that's another thing we want to do. But when we do that, we're going to do the different kind of lights in the ceiling. So we might do some spotlights in some rooms, or we might have like some hanging lights in the kitchen. So we're going to do all of that in one go. Yeah, that sort of thing is going to take a lot of time. It's more so things like painting. So this wall never used to be blue, but this is probably one of my favorite walls in the house. And not because it's the background of my podcast, but because I just love adding a bit of colour. And Nathan mentioned adding blue to the living room. And I thought, how can we do that without it overpowering? And, a bit of liquor paint in a smaller area. And also we've got blue near the window as well, which is nice. But then we've also got like this colour here, which is like a beautiful sort of beigey kind of colour. And it just complements it so well. So adding bits of colour to the house will make it feel like yours. And also the length of time that you're in the house. So there's some people that go through, this feeling for like 6 months. And that's not to scare you, but it is something to be aware of, that it can happen. And, I do think it comes down to putting your mark on the house and making it feel like your home. So my best advice is to start redecorating as quickly as you can, even if it's just one room. I feel like if you redecorate one room in the house, then it does start feeling like yours. There's obviously quite a lot that we still need to do, but the house feels like ours now. And that probably has a lot to do with the fact that we've been here for nearly a year too. So I do think it's time. I do think it's redecorating, and I do feel like it's putting your stamp on things in terms of like adding furniture and adding plants here and changing the curtains. Like we had red curtains in here where the sellers left them for the first like 3, maybe even 4 months, because we just didn't buy curtains, and curtains are so expensive, by the way. Like it was crazy. And because we've got 2 big windows in the living room, we needed to get them both at the same time, really, because you can't have one red curtains and one like beigey kind of curtains. Maybe it was more like £300 because it was like £150 for a pair. Yeah, it was probably something more like that, not 500, but like it is expensive. And also, rugs. We got the rug quite early on, to be honest, because we didn't really like the hard floor down here. We want to get rugs upstairs as well. But the rug just gives the room a bit more like comfort and a bit more coziness, if that makes sense. And we've got blue in the rug as well. So for us, that little touch added like a lot of homeliness to our house to make it feel like ours. And I will say as well, like rugs are amazing, but they do cost a lot of money. And I mean, we got ours from Next, and I think our rug was like £300, maybe £400. That's another thing to be prepared for when you do move into your house, is you're probably going to be spending a lot of money in the first 6 months. So that's with furniture, with paint, because paint costs really add up. And so does your time, when you add your time into it as well. Even smaller furniture like bedside tables, or maybe a new TV or that sort of thing, pillows, like things do add up. And they do say that the first year of moving into your first home is probably the hardest in terms of like payments and stuff like that, because your first mortgage repayment is a lot higher in the first month than it is in the consecutive months after that. So what I mean by that is, if you move in, for us, for example, we moved in the middle of February. When our payment got taken out on the 1st of March, we paid for the whole of March and then half of Feb. So we paid 1 month's worth of mortgage and half a month's worth of mortgage in one go. And for us, that was like £3,000 that we paid in the first month. Now, our mortgage is quite expensive. I think ours is like, we pay £997 each. So our mortgage is nearly £2,000 a month, which is actually wild. Like, how crazy is that? Imagine living by yourself and having to pay £2,000 a month. Like, I honestly take my hat off to anyone that buys a house on their own. Like, how do people afford that? I mean, fair enough, we live in like a nice area, which we wanted, and we needed good train lines to London. But I think we're not stretching ourselves too thin, which is good. But like, it is quite a lot of money. But obviously we're halving everything, so that's fine. And that's another interesting thing. Like, people do things very different in relationships, and me and Nathan have always been a 50-50 split, and my sister and her boyfriend are like it too. And we also know people that do it differently. Like, it might be 70-30 or it might be 60-40. So it can depend on if people have, different jobs and how much they bring in and stuff. But for us, we always kind of wanted to keep it 50-50. But we've always said, if that ever has to change in terms of both our circumstances, then we will do that. So Nathan has a really good job, and, I have a really good job too, and I'm self-employed. So for me, it's a little bit more up in the air on how much I bring home a month, but I'm always able to pay my bills and pay my mortgage and still live a life and go on holidays and have dinners and stuff. So I'm never restricted in that sense, which I'm really lucky. If I was in my previous job, I was making 30k a year. So my take home was like 2,000. Yeah, my take home was 2,000. So if I got this house on my own, which I wouldn't have done because I wouldn't have been able to afford it, my take home pay would have only covered the mortgage and I wouldn't be able to pay for anything else, which is quite crazy if you think about that. Like, that's a 30 grand mortgage, which is mad. It is mad. So it's food for thought, because you need to really think about what you can afford after you move into your house. To me, it's not just about repaying the mortgage and the bills and stuff. You have to think, like, if the interest rate did go up by a few percent, which would be really annoying and suck big time, but if it did, could you still afford your house? Because for us, I think we locked into a 5.4% interest rate, which is quite high. And maybe a year or two before, it was like up to 7%. Like, imagine doing a 7% interest. It would have been horrific. But we did a 5.4%. We were quite lucky in that sense. But I have friends that locked into like a 1%, 2% interest rate mortgage. And now they're having to like go up to like maybe 4.5% or something like that. So it can vary and it is different. Basically, you want to just make sure that if inflation does fluctuate, that you're still able to pay it back and still live a good life and not be like stretching yourself too thin. And we worked that out. Like, we literally looked at the calculations of, if we went up to 7%, how much would we actually be paying back for our mortgage, and could we still afford those repayments? Because what the bank will do also is they'll be doing those calculations in the back end too. So they'll be working out, if the interest rate did go up, could you still, you know, afford this as a repayment for your mortgage? Because anything can happen in the market, and we don't want it to happen, obviously, but it can. So they want to make sure that they're going to be paid back their money. And another thing that I will say that we started doing straight away, that I feel like any first time buyer or anyone that lives in a house should do that has a mortgage, if you're not doing this already, please look into it and do it as soon as possible, because it is one of the best things you can do to shave off years from your mortgage. So that's overpaying on your mortgage every month. Now, we overpay probably about £100 every month on our mortgage. Now, what this does is that money gets taken off directly from your mortgage and not from the interest. So basically, when you're paying back your mortgage with the bank, you're probably paying 90, maybe 95% of that year in interest. And you're only actually probably paying like £200 or £300 towards your mortgage. Now, if you were overpaid on your mortgage £100 a month for 12 months, that's £1,200 getting put straight towards your actual mortgage. So when you come to maybe remortgage in 2 years or 5 years' time, you'll actually be shaving off years of your mortgage. So like, your repayments might be less. So for example, by the end of our 2-year fixed mortgage, we would have actually already paid off like £2,500 of our mortgage just from overpayments. Whereas the 2 years of paying back on the interest and the mortgage from the bank, that might only be like £300 a year. So that might equate to £600 for 2 years, but we've actually overpaid more. So we've paid back more, and basically that will get taken into effect in terms of like remortgaging, looking at the next 2 or 5 year fixed mortgage that we're going to go for. So definitely when you move in, just see if you can afford something, like even if it's £20 a month. I'm honestly not joking. If you even look online at, I think it's Money Saving Expert and Martin Lewis, he does like a mortgage overpayment calculator. You can work out how much mortgage years are shaved off if you pay back something and overpay back something every month. Even if it's £20 a month, you're still going to be shaving something off, and that is going straight into your mortgage repayment. So we do this directly on the bank. So, you know, obviously check with your lender on the T's and C's, because all of them are different. For example, I think with Halifax, we can only overpay 10% of the overall mortgage a year. So if we won the lottery, for example, we couldn't just overpay it all in 1 year without having repercussions or having to pay maybe a penalty or something like that. I don't know. But I do remember that clearly, because yeah, that's just something that stuck into my brain when we were going through the house process. So definitely look at the T's and C's to do with your lender, because some lenders will be different. But generally, you can probably just go on the bank that you have them with and then just send the money directly into your mortgage fund. So that's what we've been doing anyways, and it's been fine. So definitely check with your lender with that. But yeah, overpaid on your mortgage, so key. Do it as early as possible, and you'll shave off like, I think ours, we're going to shave off like 10 years off our mortgage. Like, that's crazy. And I feel like if we get a bit more money here and there, we might just put a few more £100 at the end of the year or something like that. And the last point that I want to leave you on is the fact that you don't need to get everything done straight away. So I feel like when you move in, you look at things online and on social media of people it looks like people paint their houses in one day. And that is just not the case. Like painting takes forever, guys. Like it takes so long. And you'll understand when you start painting, or if you have done already, you'll know exactly what I mean. It's really boring and your arms ache and it feels like it takes forever. And then the paint has to dry and then you have to do another coat. And then you've only done one wall, so you need to do the other wall. It takes actual ages, and it can be a really long part of the process when you just move into your house. Don't get me wrong, I feel like at the start it was really fun for me, but then by the end of it I was like, I'm not having fun. And we put the paintbrushes down and then we didn't touch them for another 3 months. And then we picked them up for another week and then we put them down for another 3 months. Like we do it in little parts. I feel like doing everything all in one go might feel like quite a lot. So don't feel like you need to do that. Just do one room at a time, honestly. And our first room got the furniture for and made it feel like home was the living room, because I feel like we spend the most time here. And then the next on our list was the bedroom. But with the living room, I feel like because we watch TV here, we chill, we play with Coco, we play games, like this is a safe space for us. And we obviously host friends and family. So for us, the living room was really important. So we really put a lot of focus on here the first like 3 months. But again, that took time, that took energy, that took money. So just don't feel like you need to rush everything and get everything done all in one go, because that just isn't reality. And I just don't want you to feel pressured to feel like you have to have everything done straight away. So take your time. We've been in for a whole year now and we've not done half the stuff that we want to do. So just take your time with it, enjoy the process, and take videos and photos of everything, because looking back at where you were to then where you're going is like the best thing ever. So that wraps up today's episode. I'm really sorry for emotionally unloading my thoughts earlier and my emotions. I needed to let out something at that time. So I let my body do it. And that's the thing, like feeling your emotions is very important. Don't ever sugarcoat things or put things to the back of your mind. You have to deal with things here and now to be able to feel your emotions and get over them type thing. Like I've noticed that loads, that if I sit with my feelings and my emotions and not ignore them, I'm able to deal with them and clear them better. So take this as your sign that it's okay to cry, because I've just cried in front of you. And I don't feel embarrassed about it. I actually feel relieved, and it made me feel like a weight's been lifted off my shoulders. So don't be afraid to cry. That's a really weird way to sign off my podcast, but there we go. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed something in there about the house buying process and not everything to do with me being ill and crying about my sister. So I will hopefully see you in the next episode. Have the best day, and I will see you next time.